It's a Northwest News Radio weekend. IRG's Health Talk continues.
Welcome to another edition of IRG Physical and Hand Therapy's Health Talk. Our guest is Mark Watson, wellness co-founder of ABI. And before we get started with the deep dive into this, Mark, tell us what ABI stands for and what it means.
Oh, for sure. A pleasure to be on with you guys, talking about something I'm really passionate about. So ABI stands for Acquired Brain Injury. And we kind of specialize in helping, clinicians and organizations to really standardize and optimize the process of really brain health optimization and rehabilitation.
So, Mark, just tell our listeners, a little bit about your background, how you became inspired, what got you involved in essentially treating people with brain injury, whether that brain injury is a traumatic brain injury, a concussion, or just maybe poor cognition, and someone maybe has what we're seeing right now, maybe like, for example, brain fog from COVID. But tell us about your background and your inspiration to start ABI Wellness and what it provides for patients.
For sure, Shannon. So what my background is, as you know, is I'm more of an educator with a background in kinesiology, and was the kind of guy who played a lot of sports when I was younger, played a little bit of football in my day, and found that, the process of rehabilitation on the physical side was very active and tracked extremely well. Especially when you're at an IRG clinic, right? But
yeah, there you go.
What we saw on the cognitive side, or on the thinking skills side, was less active and less standardized, and we really saw that, our team saw that as problematic, and went searching and found that there weren't very many solutions available when it came to the cognitive side that were as active as what we were seeing on the physical side.
Let me ask you, Mark, what types of people or organizations do you find yourself working with mostly?
Yes. Well, these can be hospital systems. These can be physiotherapy clinics like IRG. These can be, not-for-profits. These can be neuropsychologists. Really, anybody that specializes in improving brain health, that's who we tend to work with.
One of the interesting things, what we're excited at IRG about in joining ABI Wellness and their platform, their BEARS platform, which I'll ask Mark to describe and explain. But Tom, in the past, for example, you take a young athlete that has concussion symptoms or sustained a concussion. There were times where, as a therapist or an athletic trainer, when you're trying to figure out how that person is progressing in their cognition training, we were kind of flying in the dark, so to speak. And with Mark, ABI Wellness, and their BEARS platform, you have objective data, you have resources available for cognition training, cardiovascular exercises, just a nice toolbox. Maybe, Mark, you could talk about the BEARS platform and what BEARS stands for and how maybe a clinician would use that.
For sure, Shannon. Happy to. BEARS stands for Brain Enhance and Recovery System. And, what it does is it really helps the clinician or the clinic to further standardize and optimize the process of their case management and rehabilitation and tracking all in one space. Because we found that many clinicians are out there doing wonderful work, but unfortunately a lot of the reporting is stored in different places, which makes it hard for them to plan the care for those individuals in real time, which again puts all the data behind the rehab, which just makes it ultimately harder for the patient. And our goal is to really help that patient.
Let me then piggyback on that. It seems like this is such a new platform that it's probably not anything that most people can get. It would seem like it's kind of hard to find right at this point.
Absolutely. It's still early. It really started with research. And in that research process, we found that, the brain continues to have a remarkable capacity for change, just like the body. And once we found that in the research that was done up here in Canada at the University of British Columbia, we started to really work on developing our technology, our software platform, and now really are starting to make it available and accessible in communities across North America.
Tell our listeners how they can get more information.
Go over to abiwellness.com. You want to contact us, there's forms on there. We'll take care of you.
Mark, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Mark Watson from ABI right after this time out on Northwest News Radio.
It's a Northwest News Radio weekend. Here's Tom Hutler and Shannon O'Kelly. This is IRG's Health Talk.
We're back with our guest today, and a very interesting guest, Mark Watson of ABI Wellness, a co-founder there with Shannon O'Kelly. I'm Tom Hutler, and Shannon, very interesting topic so far.
Oh, it's not just an interesting topic, Tom, but Mark can explain. I mean, there's a huge need out there in our community. You know, just an example, if someone sustains, let's say, a traumatic brain injury, you know, a brain injury that's significant enough where that patient has to maybe go into rehab. That rehab is usually, you know, several weeks. But the reality is when that person is discharged from rehab, there's not a lot of resources out there for a lot of people, just not traumatic brain injury, but I'm talking about, you know, cognition. I'm talking about concussions in athletes. There's just not a lot of resources out there for a patient to get on a platform that progresses them through with nice, objective data that the provider, the clinician, can collect and assess and progress that patient through their neuro rehab. And one of the things that Mark and I are kind of really excited about is neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is a big word, but I'm going to let Mark explain that. And that's how we function in rehab. Mark, tell the listeners what neuroplasticity is.
So neuroplasticity refers to the brain's capacity for change through repeated behavioral and targeted kind of exercises. Okay, or just repeated behaviors. So we see neuroplasticity everywhere in communities. However, in brain injury, as Shannon was saying, very few places are really leveraging that great possibility for neuroplasticity in the rehabilitation process when we think about cognitive rehabilitation. Shannon could tell you, and I'm sure probably has in other episodes, how he's utilizing neuroplasticity on physical rehabilitation in his practice. But on the cognitive side, it's just such a great opportunity for progress to be made for so many people that are suffering in community right now, that may have a history of concussion, that may have had a stroke and have made some great physical gains following their stroke, but are left with these persisting kind of cognitive symptoms. And what that means when I say cognitive is really our thinking skills, right? So many people that are out there in community right now during this pandemic have experienced brain fog after maybe a COVID infection. Well, the data is out there now that, yes, this is a thing neurologically. Of course, there's pulmonary issues, but there are also comorbid or additional symptoms that are related to the brain. And not a lot is really being done to treat that yet. But I'm excited to see where this goes and how more people can get access to treatment securely and reliably through IRG.
I wanted to ask you and kind of backtrack here. You co-founded this with Howard Eaton, and both of you apparently struggled in school because of learning disabilities. Was that kind of the impetus for you to get this going?
Absolutely. We both see ourselves as underdogs, and we had to build resilience early. We had a lot of help in school. Howard's a mentor of mine. It was hard for me to learn how to read, but I was given the opportunity through some good, phonics-based programs to learn how to read through a multisensory approach. And then we saw, so thankfully someone had created systems that could help. But when we looked at the world of brain injury, we just didn't see that. And that was really concerning to us. And we felt like, along with Barbara Aerosmith-Young as well, that it was important that we did some research to see what the research said objectively. And then if there was positive effect, we felt a sense of responsibility to put this out there into the world. And that's what we're doing.
Well, Mark, we are out of time, unfortunately. Tell our listeners how they can get more information, your websites. I know you do a podcast too. Anything you'd like to get out to our listeners to hear?
Oh, for sure. What would be great is if you wanted to learn a little bit more about the Bears platform and what it does and where it's available, you can just go over to abiwellness.com. You want to contact us, there's forms on there. We'll take care of you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon. Always a pleasure.